Okay, this is an inexpensive head unit. $59 Carzin is the name, from Amazon. And we are going to take a look at the components inside and then focus on wiring it up. First of all, it comes with the backup camera and wire to run from the head unit back to the camera. And the next thing we're going to pull out is the bag with the wiring harnesses, the speaker and the power wires. We'll show how those are wired up as well. And then finally the unit itself, the monitor, 7 inches, that has the jacks on the back and a 7-inch display. And the wiring harnesses plug in on the left there, and the camera is going to hook up on the right. Okay, let's power this up. I have highlighted the 3 wires we're going to be concerned with. The red wire, which is accessory 12 volts, the yellow wire, which is always on 12 volts, and the black, which is ground. This plugs into the bottom plug and it's keyed, so you can't put it in the wrong place. Now we're going to tease out these 3 wires that we need. For the purposes of testing it, we're just wiring together the yellow and the red. And that's going to go to plus 12 DC on this small battery that we'll be using to test it. And there it goes on the plus 12 volt terminal on the battery. And then the black wire, we're simply going to hook up to the minus 12 volt, the ground on the battery. And we should have ignition, and there it is. Okay, once it goes through its boot up, it's got like a little welcome screen there, and then it kind of prompts you to enter the time, date, but you can just power it on by hitting that button up on the left, that one that has the white light on. I'm not going to go through a bunch of the menus. There are quite a few menus on this. That's not my purpose here. Okay, let's wire up the backup camera and test that. Here is the camera itself. That's the wiring that goes to the backup light, and that's the wire that goes from the camera all the way up to the head unit. Okay, there's the backup wiring diagram that we're going to be using. First we'll plug in to the red jack, this black one, that goes to the backup light. It's going to provide power. The red will provide the power, the black DC ground. And the yellow jack, coming from the camera, plugs into the yellow jack on the long cable going back to the head unit. Okay, the red wire goes from the backup light, runs alongside, and hooks up. For testing purposes, we're just going to wire these 2 together. In the real world, that's exactly where they'll be wired together. The other end goes to the head unit, camera input, lower right-hand corner. Now the other end of the red wire is going to go to the backup in signal. There it is, A2. It's actually a gray wire in the harness that wires into that extra red wire. So we'll wind those 2 together, wrap those 2 together temporarily here, and then we can test this backup camera. Okay, we're going to simulate a backup light signal by putting a jumper on those 2 wires we wound together earlier, putting it on 12 volts. Okay, the camera's in backup, and it takes over whatever's on the screen, gives you the backup view. So this camera looks like it's going to work okay. It has lights on it as well, and pretty much established. It did not have to hook up the ground. It's grounded internally. Okay, now you have to get a harness from that's going to fit your factory harness, and when you do that, just wind together the matching wires for the 8 speaker wires. And I'm just using a wire nuts. You could splice them with something else if you want, and then wrapping it up with tape to make sure they stay put. Okay, here's the last one on the speaker harness. And the speaker harness is done. Okay, the power harness, or the A1 harness, has more wires than what you'll find on your factory harness. The red, the yellow, and the black are the critical ones. We have a blue also that we wired up with no problem. But when we wired this orange wire up, which is A3, the unit would not power up. So we just left it disconnected. Okay, we're just going to quickly go through the rest of this. There's the red wire getting wired up. Accessory on. Pull the gray wire, that's one we're going to need. So let's just plug it in. The power wiring harness goes in the lower slot. It is keyed. Speaker harness in the upper slot. And here's the backup camera in end of that long wire. Lower right hand corner plugs in. And then finally the red, the power coming back from the backup light, goes into the gray wire. As you might remember, back in on that A1 harness. Get a wire nut on there, tape it up, and we'll be ready to put this in our car. Alright. So we're just trying to find a place to feed it through, and it's coming through on the driver's side. And then we're just going to bunch it up for now. Still don't see it here. Oh, there it is. There it comes through. A couple things to plug in. Well, let's start with the harness. Like this. That's in. And then there's the antenna, which keeps getting away from me. You want to listen to some radio and then tuck everything in there. Okay, the camera wiring is going to be run along the lower left side of the car, under the doors, under those little pieces of plastic there. I'm not showing that. Okay, we've mounted the camera onto the back of the car, and we're running wire through the trunk. Brought it through a grommet. And here we are once again, just as we did earlier when we did the test. There's the real world wiring, yellow to yellow, and the black backup wire cable to the red jack. Okay, I'm going to be using automotive splice connectors, which are ideal if you don't want to cut wire when you're splicing two together. These wires, though, are rather fine. They're like 22 gauge. I'm pulling it back now because we have to put the red against the red and splice that together. And we'll see if it works. Okay, let's bring the backup light power to the camera and to the monitor out in front with our splice and see if it's going to work with these 22 gauge wires. And then we're routing the longer wire. The nice thing about these connectors is you don't have to cut the wires, because that'd be the other option, to cut these and butt splice them or wire nut them. The kit does not come with any connectors at all. So there we are splicing. Okay, this part is optional. I'm going to use that black wire and ground it the way it's really intended to be done. I couldn't find anything in the lid, but I found a ground in the trunk itself. Okay, you're going to crimp a spade fitting onto this ground here. Okay, now we found our ground here. We'll just slip it under here. Got a 6mm coarse thread nut that fits on there. Okay, so it appears there is room for one more wire here in this. Well, it's a little bit reluctant to come through there. There it goes. Alright, we'll tie that up inside. Make sure that's more than enough to get to our backup light here. Okay, the green wire is the power wire. And now we're going to tap into that wire and splice it to our power wire coming back. Make sure it's in there all the way. Pick your spot. On the green wire, push through. Make sure that's in its slot. And then we'll just splice it. Okay, let's see if it works. Shifting into reverse. Okay, this first splice that I made didn't work. Cut through the insulation but didn't get to the actual conductor. So you could butt splice or wire nut these. I chose the wire nut. Okay, Okay, let's shift into reverse. Okay, it's working now, except our, our image is upside down. So we're not quite done yet. We can go back and straighten this out. If your image is upside down, flip that bracket around. It's the only way that I could find. Hey, there it is. That's what we're looking for. For the money, this unit's not too bad. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe for more useful and interesting videos.